homework assignment teaching social studies. We had 3 reading assignments, the following. Okay, so I want to start out this video a little bit better than my last video, is that this is an awesome learning experience to video record myself lecturing about the reading assignments, which we talked about today in class. The first one being about textbooks, I thought was very intriguing, especially when you put social studies as the subject area. I think it'd be interesting to explore this in other subject areas, being that it probably, I don't see, would be as critical, especially being that I want to teach math, and math is more cut and dry, I guess you could say. The things I wanted to hit on this are, I liked how the writer talks about getting the students' views on the textbook and the way that the book was written and how they feel about it, and putting that active learning into a lesson that intrigues students to not just take what's given to them by someone's word. Because nowadays textbooks are all subject to someone's opinion, which I think is, it's funny to learn that, you know, your textbooks aren't necessarily correct. It's a textbook. You think it's a factual book, but it's not. And history, my next point would be that it's true. There is a certain amount of our history that is factual, that we can prove. I think a lot of our textbooks sugarcoat a lot of the things that happened. Now, in our younger generations, I definitely believe that certain things shouldn't necessarily be revealed at that time. I think we should take our time and walk our students through our history. Obviously, racism is a huge part of our history, and it's still going on now, as well as I think we discussed in human trafficking and talking about slavery, and how the initial book that we were looking at put in the word workers instead of slaves, because that's what they were. They were slaves. They were people taken from their country and made to work for slavery, which to me is just, it's insane to think that that is our history, but that's what it was. And I don't think that we should sugarcoat any of that. I think our students need to learn the facts and the truth from not just our point of view, but from other points of view, because we are a diverse culture, and our American history may not be some or even all of our students' history. We're going to have several different students of different origins that come into play in our classes, and I think he hit it right on the nail of the head on asking students their opinion on a book. The next reading was my favorite out of all of them so far, was the Rosa Parks and the True Story. Like, I thought it was so interesting because they only give you so much, like, even in high school. Because, I mean, I know Rosa Parks. I know the name. I remember hearing about it. And I vaguely remember learning. You know, she was a woman that got arrested because she wouldn't get up from a seat. But as you read the article, I think I highlighted it really nice and bold there. There it is, right there, black and white. Now, this is probably, given that you gave it to us, I'm going to take you as your word for it, that this is based pretty factual. It says she sat in the front row of the colored section. It wasn't like she was sitting in the front of the bus in the white section and she wouldn't get up. She was in her section that was designated to her. She didn't get up because she was tired. She was in the correct spot that she was supposed to be in, and they still arrested her because she wouldn't get up because the bus got too full. Her words said in the article, "When the driver saw me sitting and he asked if I was going to stand up, I said, no, I'm not. And he said, well, if you don't stand up, I'm going to have to call the police and have you arrested. I said, you may do that. He said he did get off the bus, and I still stayed where I was. 2 policemen came on the bus. One of the policemen asked if the bus driver had asked me to stand up. I said yes. He said, why didn't you stand up? I asked him, why do you push us around? He said, I do not know, but the law is the law and you're under arrest. Well, if the law is the law, they weren't obeying by what the law was back then. She was in her section. She was in the front of her colored section, sitting where she was supposed to be at, and they still arrested her because the white section got full. I thought it was... I'm getting over exaggerated with this one. I thought this reading was unbelievably intriguing for me, and I actually can't wait to share this with other people that I know as just a general topic conversation. Being that I'm a bartender, having these awesome, because people ask me how's school going, and being able to bring up something like this is going to be very intriguing to see how the public reacts to it too, because being on the other side of the bar, people like to talk a lot. So I can't wait to put it out there to what I see in my public around me and how their opinions come about with this. Also wanted to point out in this article too is that she was not the first or the only person to be told this. Another one was Joanna Gibson, a professor at an Alabama State University it's an African American university. In 1949, Gibson was pulled off of a bus in Montgomery for refusing to move to the back of an almost empty bus. She and another woman resolved to do about the same segment. So basically, she was also forced off a bus that was basically empty, but because she wouldn't go all the way to the back, but it was empty and there's no one even on there, but she still couldn't sit there. To see that slavery was that big of a deal, just, it hurts. I don't, as a white girl, or a white female, I wish I could help make a difference, and I can't apologize for what was done to Black members of our community. I wasn't there and I wasn't a part of it. But what I can do is be the person I am now, and I'm not racist and I'm not judgmental against those people. And to me it hurts, not because it was part of my family or however it's explained from their perspective, but to know that people could be that hurtful and to believe that people once thought like that. I wasn't grown up. I didn't grow up like that. I was grown to teach people with respect, no matter their color, shape, or size, and I hope to one day teach my own children that. The last article was intriguing. It was long. I'll hit some key points on this one. Why should students study history? In the very beginning, there's a great quote from this. I don't think we mentioned it in class because we were in our smaller groups. It says, students should be encouraged to go into history in order to come out of it, and should be disencouraged from going into history and getting lost in it, as some historians do, which I so agree to this. I am currently in U.S. history. I'm going to be semi-respectful and not mention the professor's name. You'll have to go look at my professor. I don't want to be rude. My current professor, though, is a great guy, and I like him. However, I took his midterm today, and I was completely lost. He teaches, and I was hoping to get more. I like facts. Honestly, I think history should be done on facts and dates and names and people and the story behind what happened. The class I thought I was signing up for was a medieval times history class, is what I grasped from the concept. And he briefly mentioned the Tudors and a lot of American history and where we're going into, and a lot of it's the Native American history, and it's great, but I have no idea what he's talking about. I'm so lost that it's unbelievable, and a lot of my classmates are lost as well. It's just, he talks, and half the time I have no idea what he's talking about. He's not very clear on what he's talking about or giving us the information that we need. His PowerPoints are simply a picture and a name. That's it. No definition behind what it is. He blatantly told us that he hated our textbook, which I can understand from the previous article, that our textbooks aren't great. But if you don't like the textbook, at least give us the information that we need to know, because nobody even knew what to study. I mean, I went through my textbook trying to figure out what to study and learn and read the chapters, but I still ended up, I think I ended up with like a 70 or something, or 68 on the midterm, because I was just completely lost. The other thing I wanted to bring up in this article, sorry, looking at my notes, was this. I thought that this was the most intriguing of all. Underneath the capture of the picture says, picket signs from the protest in 1941 during the time heightened labor unrest when Walt Disney fired union organizers on his art staff. I was really intrigued by this because I'm a huge Disney person. I love anything Walt Disney. I did a major economics project in investing in Disney, and it was cool to see today's time of Disney, but I never really did too much of the history of Disney. So I stuck it in my Google search just to kind of see what it, and grasp some kind of point of what that was meaning. And what I grasped from what I Googled was that Disney did fire a bunch of artists. The film they were working on at the time in 1941 was Snow White. The artists were complaining that they felt that the film was going to be a complete flop and not work. So there was a lot of reserved and preservation that the film was not going to work. So Walt Disney felt that his artists weren't doing the job that he portrayed them to do. Although back then, Walt Disney, being in the 1940s, wasn't the man that we all think he is, you know, now, with the name that we associate with him. The person, so what I've read is that he wasn't a very nice man behind the scenes, which I thought was really intriguing, and love to do more research on him, and if it ever possible, we'll hopefully do a paper on his history. But what I grasped from it is that the artists were not doing what they should. So he fired a bunch of people that he probably shouldn't have fired, but because everyone was gossiping that the film wouldn't do well, and the film Snow White, which we know today, was a hit. It's an amazing hit that we still know today, you know, so many years later. And he ended up not giving bonuses to the people that he kept or the people that did their job, but giving pay raises to a certain number of people, which in turn was, I guess, the way he did it was incorrect, or at the time. The next two films that they worked on were Fantasia and Pinocchio, which actually at the time completely bombed. Like, they did horrible. And which is funny because nowadays Pinocchio and Fantasia being one of Walt Disney's biggest famous things that we all know and incorporate with Walt Disney, actually failed in the box office is when it came out. And Walt Disney eventually had to cut pay and lay workers off and fire more people because of that, after what he just did with Snow White. So there was a big protest that he couldn't make his mind up back and forth, and there were probably some things that he did wrong, and the art designers did go on a protest for some, hopefully a valid reason. But what I grasped from the little bit that I read on the subject was that Disney was, I guess, not right or not wrong. But I thought it was interesting because it says students should study history, and his article got me intrigued to learn about the history of something that I completely enjoy. Again, I'm really loving this experience of video recording my homework. It's slightly embarrassing, but I'm liking that it's teaching me a new way to learn, and I appreciate that. Until the next video, thank you.